With the New York City election finally underway and election day coming up if you're not voting ahead of time, I just wanted to make a video about Zohran Mamdani's policies and just do a deep dive on what his opinions are and what policies he intends to implement as mayor. This is for people who are voting in the election, but also just for people who are curious and are political observers like myself. So Zohran Mamdani.
This evening, New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury.
Every politician says New York is the
greatest city on the globe.
But what good is that if no one can afford to live here?
Your main opponent, Andrew Cuomo, continually mispronounces your name. I want you to respond to that. This is how he does it.
I'm running against a man named Zohran Mamdani. He's a socialist.
If you can respond to that and tell us how you say it, your full name.
Zohran Kwame Mamdani.
Zohran.
Full name.
Zohran Kwame.
Zohran. I think I've been saying his name slightly wrong. Zohran Mamdani. Anyways, that was a side tangent. So what exactly are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about his ideas around rent. We're going to go through his various policies from housing. What are his opinions on housing? Safety. What specifically does he say about the police and things like that? Affordability. You've probably heard about his city-owned grocery stores. What's that all about? Early childhood and education. Paying for our agenda. Climate. LGBTQ. Healthcare, labor, small businesses, libraries, Trump-proofing New York City. So I'll leave time codes at the bottom. There'll be different chapters. So if you're only interested in some of these categories, you can skip to those parts. So let's start with the homepage, just because generally speaking, you're going to start with the most important things to you and to your constituents. So the main platform is New York is too expensive. Zohran will lower costs and make life easier. All right, freeze the rent. A majority of New Yorkers are tenants, and more than 2 million of them live in rent-stabilized apartments. New York City population, 8 million. Okay. So around 25%. These homes should be the bedrock of economic security for the city's working class. Instead, Eric Adams has taken every opportunity to squeeze tenants with his hand-picked appointees to the Rent Guidelines Board, jacking up rents on stabilized apartments by 12.6% and counting. The most since a Republican ran City Hall. As mayor, Zohran will immediately freeze the rent for all stabilized tenants and use every available resource to build the housing New Yorkers need. And bring down the rent. The number one reason working families are leaving our city is the housing crisis. The mayor has the power to change that. This is probably the most important policy for those individuals and directly addresses his main platform here. Fast, fair, free buses. Public transit should be reliable, safe, and universally accessible. But 1 in 5 New Yorkers struggle to afford the ever-rising fare. Adding insult to injury, our city's buses are the slowest in the nation, robbing working people of precious time for family leisure and rest. Zohran won New York's first fare-free bus pilot on 5 lines across the city. As mayor, he'll permanently eliminate the fare on every city bus and make them faster by rapidly building priority lanes, expanding bus queue jump signals, and dedicating loading zones to keep double parkers out of the way. Fast and free buses will not only make buses reliable and accessible, but will improve the safety for the riders and operators, creating the world-class service New Yorkers deserve. I love the detail here. I feel like a lot of politicians' websites will say, like, you know, make public transportation better, but then not actually give any clear examples of what they would want to do or what they will do. And again, directly helping sort of the thesis statement behind his campaign, right? So it's good to keep everything pointing back towards your main point. The Department of Community Safety. All New Yorkers deserve to be safe, but the Adams administration has failed to deliver the sense of safety and security that everyone should feel walking down our streets, riding our subways, and taking our buses. Zohran will create the Department of Community Safety to prevent violence before it happens by prioritizing solutions which have been consistently shown to improve safety. Police have a critical role to play, but right now we're relying on them to deal with the failures of our social safety net, which prevents them from doing their actual job. Though this new city agency and whole of government approach, the community safety will be prioritized like never before in New York City. The department will invest in citywide mental health programs and crisis response, including deploying dedicated outreach workers in 100 subway stations, providing medical services in vacant commercial units, and increasing transition ambassadors to assist New Yorkers on their journey. Expand evidence-based gun violence prevention programs and increase funding to hate violence prevention programs by 800%. I think the Department of Community Safety is a really good idea and one that needs to be tested in the United States. It's been a talking point for a long time, ever since George Floyd, of defunding the police in ways that more left-leaning people want to change public safety. And obviously you can't just get rid of the police. Like, that's a very foolish thing to do and not something that people actually want. And so you need to change the way that your government responds to issues like mental health outbreaks. And I think a Department of Community Safety is a good way to try to do that. No-cost childcare. After rent, the biggest cost of New York's working families is childcare. It's literally driving them out of the city. New Yorkers with children under 6 are leaving at double the rates of all the others. The burden falls heaviest on mothers who are giving up paying jobs to do unpaid childcare. Zohran will be implementing free childcare for every New Yorker aged 6 weeks to 5 years, ensuring high-quality programming for all families. He will bring up the wages for childcare workers, a quarter of whom currently live in poverty, to be at parity with public school teachers. It will foster early childhood development, save parents money, and keep families in the city they call home. The data on early childhood education is amazing. In the sense of, like, if you get those first few years of education, you are in such a better place than if you don't get those education. I was fortunate enough to have preschool and get to start my education early. And in the United States, a lot of people don't get that opportunity. The first time they go to school is in kindergarten. And the evidence has been very clear in showing that the outcomes are much better for students who start earlier. City-owned grocery stores. Food prices are out of control. Nearly 9 in 10 New Yorkers say the cost of groceries is rising faster than their income. Only the very wealthiest aren't feeling squeezed at the register. As mayor, Zohran will create a network of city-owned grocery stores focused on keeping prices low and not making a profit. Without having to pay rent or property taxes, they will reduce overhead and pass on savings to shoppers. They will buy and sell at wholesale prices, centralize warehousing and distribution, and partner with local neighborhoods on products and sourcing. With New York City already spending millions of dollars to subsidize private grocery store operators, which are not even required to take SNAP, which is public funds for, we should redirect public money to a real public option. So the city-owned grocery stores idea is one that I'm probably the least excited about of Zohran's platform, but I think it's something that's worth trying, right? I think my general idea about politics is that a lot more experiments need to be done, and we can't act like every idea is going to sound perfect when you first hear it. In science, oftentimes the ideas that are unusual or not expected are the ones that end up producing the greatest results. And we need to take that idea and apply it to public policy. We can't only make safe bets if we want to improve the public, right? We need to have test runs. We need to do small tests. Like in Zohran's case for New York City, he wants to do one of these in each of the boroughs of New York. And I think that's a good idea to test it. And if it's foolish and it doesn't work, then that's fine, right? We have to experiment if we want to learn. Housing by and for New York. We need a lot more affordable housing. But for decades, New York City has relied on almost entirely on changing the zoning code to entice private development, with results that can fall short on big promises. And the housing and the housing that does get built is often out of reach for the working class who need it the most. As mayor, Zohran will put our public dollars to work and triple the city's production of permanently affordable, union-built, rent-stabilized homes, constructing 200,000 new units over the next 10 years. Any 100% affordable development gets fast-tracked. No more pointless delays. And Zohran will fully staff our city's housing agencies so we can actually get the work done. For the additional housing we need, Zohran will initiate a comprehensive plan for New York City to create a holistic vision for affordability, equity, and growth. This planning will allow New York City to address the legacy of racially discriminatory zoning, increase density near transit hubs, and the requirement to build parking lots and proactively chart our future. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that New York City needs more housing. That's the main reason why rents are so expensive, right? Is supply, the classic supply and demand curves. But 200,000 units over 10 years is maybe a little less ambitious than I would hope for, but obviously there's going to be private investment as well. So, cracking down on bad landlords. 1 in 10 renter households reported a lack of adequate heat last winter. 1 in 4 reported mice or rats in their homes. 500,000 live in poor quality housing. Every New Yorker deserves a safe and healthy place to call home. That's why Zohran will overhaul the mayor's office to protect tenants and coordinate code enforcement under one roof, making sure agencies work together to hold owners responsible for the conditions of their buildings. Tenants will be able to schedule and track inspections with a revamped 311. If a landlord refuses to make a repair, the city will do it and send them a bill. I think that's a pretty awesome policy. Now, obviously, is there a way that this policy can be exploited? Absolutely. It's not one that you can just say this policy and then it's done. You have to, you're going to have to be on it, and it's going to be a tricky situation to maintain. But I think this idea of if a landlord refuses to make a repair, the city will do it and send them a bill, I think it's an idea that could work. And in the most extreme cases, when an owner demonstrates consistent negligence for their tenants, the city will decisively step in and take control of their properties. The worst landlords will be put out of business. Okay, this is the last one from the main page. Taxes on big corporations and the wealthiest New Yorkers. Zohran has a plan to bring down the cost of living through city-owned grocery stores, universal child care, and other bold proposals, and he knows exactly how to pay for it. Zohran's revenue plan will raise the corporate tax rate to match New Jersey's 11.5%, bringing in $5 billion. Let's see what, as of right now, it's not clear, but we'll get to that once we get to the section for that specifically. And he will tax the wealthiest 1% of New Yorkers, those earning above $1 million annually. A flat 2% tax. Right now, city income tax rates are essentially the same whether you make $50,000 or $50 million. Zohran will also implement common sense procurement of reform, end senseless no-bid contracts, hire more tax auditors, and crack down on fine collection from corrupt landlords to raise an additional $1 billion. All right, let's dig into the policy. So let's talk about housing. Housing is obviously a huge issue in New York City. Rent is very high. Let's see what the current data says. So the average rent in New York is $4,000 a month with an average apartment size of 600 square feet. Yikes. So for a studio, you're looking at about $3,200 a month, $3,300. One bedroom is $4,000 a month. 2 bedroom is $5,500, and a 3 bedroom is $7,000 a month. Jeez. So $84,000 a year just in rent. All right, freeze the rent. We spoke about. Let's see if there's anything new in this brief.
I'm freezing your rent as the next mayor of New York City. Let's plunge into the details. More than 2 million New Yorkers live in rent-stabilized units, and their rents are set by the Rent Guidelines Board. The board is made up of 9 members, and the mayor appoints each one.
Doing this. Eric Adams' board has raised the rent every year he's been in office. Makes sense for a guy who said, I am real estate.
Currently, 8 of Adams' 9 appointees' terms are up and could be replaced tomorrow, and that's exactly what I would do. Rent freezes have happened before. De Blasio's board did it 3 times.
So no new information in that one. Building building affordable housing. Any 100% affordable development gets fast-tracked. Yeah, we've read this. For the additional housing we need, Zohran will initiate a comprehensive plan for New York City to create a holistic vision. Oh, let's read the policy memo. That's what I want. New York City now has the highest level of homelessness since the Great Depression. More than half of households are rent burdened. Not a surprise based on the numbers we looked at. So increasing the fast tracking of affordable rent stabilized housing will no longer take years to get approved, which is good, right? That'll speed along the process. He's going to expand the SARA, the Sarah Senior Affordable Rental Apartments. He's going to expand extremely low and low income affordability, the ELA program. He plans to double the city's capital investment in major renovations for the public housing. Redirect the Office of Management and Budget towards public sector priorities and advocate in Albany, so that's the state's capital, to increase the city's public debt ceiling. And in Washington, to remove the city's volume cap for affordable housing bond financing. They're going to fund this program through municipal bonds. Zohran will allocate $70 billion to the city's 10-year capital plan to create new affordable housing. So that's where the money is going to come from for those 200,000 homes he was speaking about. He's going to use city-owned land to save some money on that. Pooled rental assistance. From a lack of available affordable supply to widespread source of income discrimination, the city's voucher utilization rates are tremendously low. We can use this existing subsidy more efficiently by pooling individual rental assistance and providing project-based operating assistance to buildings that can reliably use these stable income streams while providing very low rent. So this is encouraging people to take landowners or property owners to take advantage of already existing. Increasing zoned capacity. This will allow housing supply to meet New York's demand for both mixed income and permanently affordable housing in areas that have historically not contributed to citywide housing goals. Supporting climate sustainability and accessibility by encouraging growth around subway stations and other public transit hubs across New York City, we will create a greener city. Eliminate parking minimums. The city should be building housing, not parking lots. This is something that really destroys some cities. Like, if you look at Louisville, Kentucky, the whole city is a freaking parking lot. Oh man, this one's a long one. Buckle up. So we're going to talk about safety. That's this next section. So what is Zohran's idea for Zohran? His idea for community safety. The Department of Community Safety will fill the gaps of our programs and services. Its mission will be to prevent violence before it happens by taking a public health approach to safety. The Department of Community Safety will prioritize prevention first, community-based solutions which have consistently shown to be better and improve safety. So the focuses include investing in citywide mental health education and services, improving subway and street safety, reducing homelessness, expanding gun violence prevention, addressing hate violence, supporting victims, leading interagency innovations and coordination. Police have a critical role to play, but right now we're relying on them to deal with our frayed social safety net, which prevents them from doing their actual jobs. It's one of the reasons only 39% of crimes are solved, and police response times are over 20% longer than they were. It will be funded, so the department will have a budget of $1.1 billion, and it will be funded by better use of existing funding, finding government efficiencies, and cutting waste, combined with newly generated revenue where needed. So, in my interpretation of this couple sentences is it's not all accounted for yet. But it says here 455 million of that represents new funding needs. So more taxes is most likely where that will come from. Mental health. The DCS will oversee unprecedented city investment in mental health services, prioritizing peer-led programs that are proven to create long-term stability and promote recovery. Every New Yorker will be able to access community-based programs and be met with appropriate help and treatment. Establish new community health navigators. Community mental health navigators program across the city. So connections to care. Create peer clubhouses. Peer clubhouses are peer-led voluntary rehab programs that provide supportive environments for individuals with serious mental illnesses to connect with one another, build skills, and participate in activities that run the clubhouse, fostering recovery and a sense of belonging. Expand access to the city's youth mental health services, such as teen space and adolescent skills centers. Community mental health navigators will conduct community outreach, relationally organized to advertise their services. They will screen for anxiety, depression, and stress, identify and manage risk as part of a treatment team, including an on-call licensed supervisor, provide mental health referrals and broader social service referrals as needed, and then also educate about mental health. Overhaul the Be Heard program. The Behavioral Health Emergency Assistance Response Division currently deploys health professionals, including EMTs, paramedics, and mental health professionals to respond to 911 mental health calls. I think this is a really good idea. I think a lot of the times we have police officers show up to situations where they're not well equipped to handle them, like a mental health crisis, and it seems like New York already has a program for this, but he's intending to expand it and improve it. So he'll move the program into the DCS jurisdiction and reform it to be more effective, including a peer counselor on every team, use of trauma-enforced care, and a focus on long-term stability. So expand the program so that every neighborhood has a team, and that the 20 neighborhoods with the greatest need have 2 or 3 Be Heard teams, representing a 150% increase in the funding. Tripling the size of the mobile crisis team program to institute 24/7 service and improve salaries of team members. Create an interconnected mobile crisis system. Ensure New Yorkers know they can request mental health crisis responders. Yeah, this is a good thing to publicly get out there, right? So this is talking about in the transit system, creating dedicated outreach workers in our subway station. So these people would be talking to people who are sleeping on the subway, for example, to get them connected to a long-term, more stable situation. Transforming vacant commercial units in our stations. CS will use the provided medical service to homeless New Yorkers, as well as connections to longer-term support by providing access to safe and reliable location to receive support. We limit incidents of mental distress. So investing in highly visible and available transit ambassadors. This was something I saw in Japan when I visited there, and I think it would help the New York transit system as well, as having more people that are working in the subway stations. And his idea will be to assist customers with directions, information regarding line disruptions and accessibility, checking the station safety and conditions, and directing anyone in need to the outreach workers. So people there to help keep things running smoothly. So the next section is about reducing homelessness. DCS will have outreach workers that will help that person navigate their housing options. The best way to address homelessness is by providing people with lasting homes. While shelters are a necessary form of emergency temporary housing, securing stable housing for someone in crisis has been proven successful at reducing homelessness. Currently, the city neglects a housing-first solution in favor of jailing people. More than 2,500 people held on Rikers Island each year need access to supportive housing. The city spends $1.4 billion to incarcerate them, while it would cost just $108 million to provide them with supportive housing, less than 8% of the jail's expenses. By expanding supportive housing beds and deploying DCS officers to help people direct people experiencing homelessness into them, we can greatly reduce homelessness and save money. And this is something that has always bugged me about the homeless issue, is that so many places, the solution that they have for fixing homelessness is to just lock them up. And I understand there's issues with if you have excellent homeless support systems and you're sort of encouraging people from outside of the city to come there and receive that support. But the the way that we do it right now is just so backwards. Additionally, he wants to do the cure violence approach. Let's see what that means. The program deploys trained outreach workers to people identified as active firearm offenders and works with street outreach teams to identify those who are most likely to be perpetrators or victims of gun violence. ONS workers then build relationships with people involved in gun violence, sometimes fulfilling unmet material needs like diapers or food, and other times just being an active presence in the community or hosting public events. In the 15 years since ONS operated, homicides fell 62% and firearms assaults dropped 79%. So those are very good results. So to address this, they will increase the funding dedicated to the crisis management system by almost 300%, doubling funding for existing CMS programs, which operate in neighborhoods where over 50% of gun violence occurs. Establish wider gun violence prevention programs that focus on workforce development, youth mentorship, and revitalizing community spaces. Hate violence. The DCS will further a vision for New York City that is free from hate violence, especially given rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, anti-Asian hate crimes, and LGBTQ+ hate. The DCS will oversee increasing funding for hate violence programs from $3 million currently to $26 million. Hate violence has increased across the city. They will reinvigorate the Interagency Committee on Hate Crimes, rebuild the Community Advisory and Services team, including the creation of restorative justice processes, strengthen the school bias response team to include educators, mental health professionals, parents, students, and ensuring a comprehensive and community-centered approach. Bolter youth-focused programming. So this is something that I've seen in the literature, that youth-focused programming has a pretty outsized impact. If you can provide after-school programs that kids actually want to do and don't cost a lot of money, a lot of them will sign up for it, and it'll keep them out of trouble, right? They won't get caught up in a lot of the negative things that can cause harm. Continue to support and fund Compass, Summer Rising, and other educational programs that can incorporate anti-hate interventions and support for young people, as well as improve academic outcomes. Conduct more training through DOE and DYCD on hate violence curriculum. Create a youth advisory committee. Build and invest in restorative justice models through our schools and for youth, similar to restorative justice for Oakland Youth and Community Works West. These programs keep students safe, teach them conflict resolution skills, and improve academic outcomes. The study found that schools participating in the program saw a 40% decrease of suspensions for Black students, 24% decrease in absenteeism for all students, and a 60% increase in four-year graduation rates. Yeah, I've heard about this program, and their success hopefully can be replicated, because I know a lot of times these studies will have maybe an individual that's really effective or a community that needs a particular need filled, and I am hopeful that programs like these can be successful in like a formulaic way, in the sense of like, if you provide exactly this, then you will get good outcomes. But it's not a guarantee. 2 more sections for the Department of Community Safety. Fighting for long-term change to end violence, the DCS will ensure the city adequately serves victims and survivors. The total cost for the investments is $40.3 million. 55,000 New Yorkers each year seek services from Safe Horizon, the main agency tasked with supporting New Yorkers affected by crime, domestic violence, sex trafficking, and other forms of abuse. Previously, they cut $3 million from this program. To better service victims, the DCS will conduct a review, connect Safe Horizon to the CMS system, and double its funding. Funding for family justice centers, including expanding mental health services to be offered to all survivors. Ensure that the community mental health navigators and other mental health providers in the city are connected to and can recommend victim support services. Last section for the DCS. The DCS will oversee a number of programs and coordinate across city agencies with a directive to prevent violence before it happens and create healthy communities across our city. Investing in environmental design like streetlights and subway lighting, restoring vacant lots and increasing green space, maintaining stable quality homes and conducting necessary repairs, expanding youth programming, including the Safe Passage programs and the SYEP program. This will also coordinate with the city's criminal legal agencies, including the courts, direct service providers, and community-based organizations that run our diversion and alternative to incarceration programs. We cannot keep our communities safe without ensuring that we commit to reforming our criminal legal system. Diversion helps make communities safer, is cheaper than incarceration, and provides New Yorkers with the services they need. Each quarter, it will host a symposium across city government with the mayor's entire leadership team on new ways that the city can become safer. To this end, it will track new evidence-based practices, liaise with other departments, lead these symposia, and ensure follow-through while strengthening efforts across agencies to guarantee we're addressing community safety from every direction. All right, so that was the Department of Community Safety. And honestly, I think this is an excellent proposal, and I think overall will lead to positive outcomes. The question is, which of these programs are going to be the most effective, and which ones will be failed experiments, right? And I think that's something that we need more of. Section is affordability. Is there a policy memo? This one's much shorter, which is good. I like the detail, honestly. Okay, so let's start with city-owned grocery stores. We covered this on the main page, so there's not a whole lot of extra here. New York Times is not going to let me read it. But I can just talk about what I know from what Zohran has talked about, and just that there's going to be a grocery store that's owned by the city in each borough starting out, and then just seeing how successful they are. If they aren't successful, get rid of the program. If they are successful, expand the program. And the argument against this is that they're not going to be effective, right? You're going to be like you are at the DMV, you got to wait a long time, or you're going to have poor service or something like that. We'll just have to see, right? I think this is a policy that will work in some places and not work in others, and I think it's not one that I would want to try, but I think it's good to encourage politicians to try different things so we can get better outcomes. So we spoke about free buses. Got an image gallery here. Yes, we already spoke about these in the intro. So free buses will shave 12% off the time of an average bus trip. So that's a big thing right there, right? Part of the reason people don't want to use the bus is that it's slower than like maybe taking an Uber or something like that. And making it 10% faster can make a huge difference. If you have an hour commute to work every day, add that up over the whole year and it drops to 50 minutes, like that's days of your life back. This increased efficiency, right? Being able to get places faster means you're able to do more. So like this image is describing, the more efficient your city is, you're going to make that money back in tax revenue. The benefits of buses, if you're not familiar, fewer crashes, reduced CO2 emissions, healthier air, less noise, fewer cars on the road. Yeah, honestly, I think this is one of his best policies. So let's check out this Fighting Corporate Exploitation document. Unfair, deceptive, and abusive practices like misleading advertising or predatory contracts, and ban all hidden fees like the ones that tack on $10 or $20 to the advertised price during checkout. Ban non-compete clauses which suppress wages and allow employers to take advantage of their workers. Yeah, I think non-compete clauses, in my mind, are unconstitutional. That's not been held up in court. I don't think that's ever been really put before the Supreme Court. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's something we have to get rid of. End secret corporate handouts by banning non-disclosure agreements for New York City's Economic Development Corporation. New Yorkers should know how much money their government is giving to companies. Yeah, I think that's nothing that the government does. Nothing that the state government does really needs to be. We're talking about a city here. It's a very big city. The local government doesn't need to be secret, right? All this stuff needs to be out in the open. We're not talking about national security. We're not talking about military tactics or something. Like, all this stuff needs to be public. Fund challenges to utility companies. Fight for the passage of a Fair Business Practices Act in Albany. So something outside of this city, not really something you can control. Increase enforcement on the New York City Consumer Protection Law by expanding staffing and doubling funding for the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. This is awesome. This will definitely help New Yorkers. Champion city and state legislation that bans junk fees. So we spoke about that already. More state issues. Non-compete clauses and protect workers from exploitation. I don't think we need to read this. In my mind, this is an awesome thing to do. Work with the city council to pass a bill that would prohibit all employers from making workers sign non-compete clauses. So this is one of the first things in the city government that he would need additional help with, right? He needs the city council for this one. Expand the city's consumer protection law to empower DCWP to better protect workers. Workers should be protected from employers misclassifying full-time staff as independent contractors, and no firm doing business in New York City should be allowed to steal from the paychecks of anyone within their supply chain, even if that person is employed by a contractor. A small change to the city's consumer protection law can allow DCWP to take on these essential fights. On in New York City about secret corporate handouts, that screams of corruption and needs to end. I mean, Eric Adams is a corrupt mayor, so I'm sure there was something shady going on with this, but gosh, that's such a stupid policy to have. The New York City energy bills, so for gas and electric, are controlled by the state's Public Service Commission, and he wants to have challenges towards that commission. So he wants to. So there's a lot of expenses for getting in front of this board to affect the changes, and he wants to fund that publicly to support qualified nonprofits that challenge the utility rate hike. So get some people in front of the board and, pitch the idea that to decrease the funds. This one's not super convincing. Public service commissions are a difficult problem to deal with. So, all right, next category. Early childhood and education. Like, this is one of the biggest policies that I think more states need to get behind. The evidence for how positive an early childhood education is for young kids is so clear and is so beneficial to the outcomes of the child. And so it's something that we have to expand. And so making it free, I feel like has my head been in the way the whole time? Oh, jeez, Rick. After rent, the biggest cost for New York's working families is childcare. It's literally driving them out of the city. New Yorkers with children under 6 are leaving at double the rate of all the others. We talked about this. That was not what I wanted to read. This one. Baby baskets. Each year, 125,000 New Yorkers are born across our city. But the cost of living crisis can make it difficult for new families to give them a healthy start. Building on the success of more than 90 similar programs around the world, the Mamdani administration will provide new parents and guardians with a collection of essential goods and resources free of charge, including items like diapers, baby wipes, nursing pads, postpartum pads, swaddles, and books. Each New York City baby basket will also include a resource guide of information on the city's newborn home visiting program, breastfeeding, postpartum depression, and more. These critical resources for combating postpartum maternal mortality and increasing trust in government as well. At less than $20 million a year, it's a relatively small investment with huge potential rewards for a healthy development and family stability, as demonstrated by countless programs around the globe. I think this is a nice policy. I don't think it's one that a lot of New Yorkers necessarily will take advantage of, but I think as long as you make it clear to people they don't have to take it, I definitely don't see any problem with this policy. Education, K through 12 education. Recruiting world-class educators. The strength of New York City's public school system lies in our dedicated teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, and any school staff who work tirelessly to educate and care for our students. The city needs to hire around 8,000 new teachers over the next several years. Attracting top-notch talent to the public school system is critical to ensure that students receive the highest quality education. To improve proficiency levels, which are currently at 57% for math, 56% for reading, New York City public schools need trained educators. To address these challenges, the Mamdani administration will scale up teacher recruitment and expand pathways to becoming an educator by launching Community to Classroom, a new citywide teacher recruitment initiative to train, certify, and hire new teachers by providing tuition support in exchange for a 3-year commitment to teaching in New York City public schools. I think that's a good idea. Is to becoming an educator. The initiative will provide $12,000 per student per year to cover tuition for teaching degrees in exchange for a commitment to teaching in New York City public school system for 3 years. Participants will also receive 4 OMNY cards, Omni, certification exams, and mentorship from existing New York City public school teachers. The initiative will prioritize 2 pathways for recruiting new educators. The early college track will support high school students interested in becoming educators. The mid-career track will serve adults interested in changing careers and obtaining their teaching certifications. This program will filling vital teacher gaps in bilingual education. This program will not only expand bilingual pupil services, which trains bilingual paraprofessionals to become teachers, but also provide additional pathways for other mid-career professionals. For this track, the DOE will work with SUNY programs that are geared towards adult learners. SUNY Empire's existing partnership with NYPD provides a model informing this program. It offers 850 online asynchronous courses for NYPD members to obtain associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees with affordable tuition, a flexible learning model designed for working students, credits for previous learning. The Mamdani administration will allocate $12 million for the program launch to support an annual cohort of 1,000 teachers. Like a reasonable investment to get those 7,000, 8,000 teachers you were looking for. Each program tries to recruit men into the teaching profession, and the idea will be for paraprofessionals who join the program and already have a bachelor's degree can pursue a tuition-free master's degree while they receive the same mentoring and MetroCard support. And that doubled, this program was successful, and it doubled the number of men teaching in New York City public schools. So there we go. That's the education, early childhood and education section. Paying for our agenda. We spoke about this part mostly to raise billions of dollars to get these initiatives funded. And here are some of the ideas to do that. Taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers, raising the top state corporate tax rate to 11.5%, the same as New Jersey's, raises $5 billion a year. Adding 2% to New York City income tax rate will make anyone more than $1 million a year, raises $4 billion a year. Common sense procurement reform raises $300 million a year. Collecting money that the city is owed raises $690 million a year. New York City Budget 101. New York City has the largest local budget in the U.S., definitely, reflecting the economic power and importance of the city. The city's budget for the current fiscal year is $115 billion, consisting of $85 billion in city funds, $20 billion in state funds, and $10 billion in federal funds. The New York City government employs 300,000 full-time employees, but about 15,000 of these positions are still. The city's residents collectively earn about $500 billion a year. The $85 billion in city funds in the budget consist of $77 billion in taxes and $8 billion in miscellaneous receipts, fines, water. As shown below, the city relies largely on the property tax, in part because the city's income tax is a flat 3.9% for all taxpayers, rather than a progressive tax that places higher rates on the wealthiest. The city tax receipts consist of $35 billion in property taxes, $18 billion in personal income taxes, $10 billion in sales tax, $6.5 billion in corporate, and $3 billion in unincorporated business tax. The city's economy grows, the city revenues naturally grow another $2.3 billion. The Mamdani budget plan: raise taxes on the wealthy. So increase taxes on those who make over $1 million a year. This is just saying that other places have increased taxes on wealthy individuals. Taxing the wealthiest corporations on the New York Stock Exchange. The Mamdani administration will champion an increase of the top corporate tax rate to 11.5%, the same as New Jersey, which will raise $5 billion per year. So I'm assuming this means not the city corporate tax rate, but the state. And that's not something he can guarantee. So we've already talked about how a 2% tax on incomes over $1 million, that'll raise an additional $4 billion, which is about half of what he needs for his plans. The city enters, so I didn't understand what the common sense procurement reform is, so I'm glad we're going to look at that. The city enters into more than $30 billion in contracts every year. For years, good governance groups have been calling for reform to our procurement system to ensure that we can get the best deal for the public. Understaffing and waste plague the system. Due to it taking the city so long to enter into contracts, many companies don't even want to work with the city anymore. We've seen the number of bids drop for government contracts, meaning there's less competition for bids, and we're paying more money for contracts as a result. Yeah, the friction here definitely increases cost for the taxpayer. The Adams administration resisted making even basic reforms. Instead, Adams has used no-bid contracts to consistently pay more than is necessary for various services, including with companies that have no track record and that have subsequently botched our services. Reducing costs by 1%, something the CBC argues basic reform could accomplish, would save $300 million per year. I think 1% is a very reasonable. Collecting what the city is owed. The city will collect close to $70 billion in tax revenue. However, the Department of Finance currently employs fewer than 300 tax auditors. That doesn't quite sound like enough to audit the 4 million filings that produce this revenue. Hiring just 50 additional tax auditors will increase New York City revenue by $165 million. I think that's a reasonable number there. New York City is owed more than $2 billion in unpaid fines. Landlords alone owe $800 million. It seems reasonable that they can raise the money. I think this one in particular is going to be the most difficult, $2 billion in unpaid fines. Good luck getting that. But overall, I think a lot of this money is reasonable to get. See if the photos have anything extra to add. Nope. All right. The next section, climate. It's a tough one in New York City. Greener schools for a healthier New York City. Children deserve to inherit a safe and healthy world. You know, some people have a problem with that, but I personally don't. I think that's a great idea. Renovate 500 public schools with renewable energy infrastructure and HVAC upgrades to accelerate the New York's energy transition and improve learning conditions. Yeah, this is actually surprising. If you look into the literature on performance and temperature in a classroom or sound in a classroom, like if the school is next to a train track or something and it's not insulated, it is astounding. Like, you effectively drop like 10, 15 IQ points, like a whole standard deviation in performance. It's incredible. Like, that's like a whole letter grade or something. Like, it's very significant having the schools be comfortable. Build 500 green schoolyards. Create 15,000 union jobs for people who build, maintain, and run our schools. Transform 50 schools into resilience hubs. Year-round community facilities that provide resources and a safe space during emergencies. Prioritize out-of-date facilities and combat environmental racism in New York City. Install solar panels. Schools have a great potential for addressing climate change. In 2021, the city calculated that K-12 public schools accounted for 32% of all energy used by city buildings. This means that public school buildings consume significantly more energy than any other type of building. Researchers estimate that transitioning New York City public schools to renewable energy could reduce the city emissions by more than 700,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent each year, eliminating nearly 1.5% of all emissions citywide. That's pretty significant change just for one policy. For comparison, this would be equivalent to taking 160,000 cars off the road each year. Transitioning to renewable energy would also save the city around $275 million a year in energy costs. Improve indoor air quality, cooling, and heating. Schools open street allow participating schools to temporarily close streets to vehicles for drop-off and pick-up operations, recess, and outdoor learning. Once called Play Streets, New York City has a roughly 100-year history of closing streets for children to play and support educational opportunities. So, speaking about the 500 green schoolyards, the benefits are reducing heat in New York City, having more green space. Like, if you have more concrete, like the concrete soaks up the heat and makes it hotter. I don't think we need to read through all the benefits of having more grass and green areas. So create 15,000 union jobs. It's not adding a whole lot to that, but just that they will hire within the community. They want to bring apprenticeships and workforce development. Transform 50 schools into resilience hubs. These hubs will strengthen social cohesion and social networks, which research consistently shows are important protective factors during and after disasters. Maintaining these hubs as community centers throughout the year will strengthen relationships with community members, which can prove critical during emergencies and recovery efforts. So what is a resilience hub? Are community facilities that are equipped to support residents and provide resources before, during, and after disasters and emergencies. They also support communities year-round by providing a space for activities, training, and social connectivity. Locating these hubs within public school facilities will reach New Yorkers in a familiar, trusted community spaces and meet families where they are. These hubs will serve as a model for what a fully green and climate-resilient community building can look like. They will support communities, respond to unique needs of the communities, host community services, and strengthen social connections during blue sky times. Provide services and training to the community, including specific training on disaster preparedness and response. Provide cooling and heating for residents in need. Provide backup power. Safeguard New Yorkers' health with medical supplies and refrigeration. Keep communities connected with resilient internet and trusted information. Coordinate disaster management and leverage green infrastructure. I think these are a good idea. Where were we? So $3 billion over 10 years for this program. $327 million a year. Greener schools for New York City. LGBTQ protections. Delivering care, opportunity, and protection. Queer and trans people across the United States are facing an incredibly hostile political environment. New York City must be a refuge for LGBTQIA+ people. But private institutions in our own city have already started capitulating to Trump's assault on trans rights. Protect LGBTQ by expanding and protecting gender-affirming care citywide, making New York City a sanctuary city, and creating an office for LGBTQ affairs. They will expand and protect gender-affirming care by investing $65 million in public providers to provide gender-affirming care to New Yorkers who seek it, and will hold private entities abetting Trump's attacks to account. It will direct $57 million to public hospitals, community clinics, federally qualified health centers, and nonprofits providing GAC, gender-affirming care. $8 million will be used to develop and support virtual and telehealth gender-affirming care and treatment. Add GAC to New York Health and Hospitals virtual care. Establish a city-based gender-affirming care access hub to direct those seeking gender-affirming care to providers based on their individual situations. Provide aftercare, home health support, and respite. Support health programs, Callan Lord Community Health Centers, Coyne Clinic. Hospitals that continue to deny trans youth access to gender-affirming care are in violation of the New York State Constitution, as well as multiple state and city laws. The Mamdani administration will coordinate with the New York State Attorney General and district attorneys to investigate and hold public hearings on hospitals that deny trans youth their rightful health care and hold them accountable to the law. So what does it mean when he's saying to make New York City an LGBTQ sanctuary city? Expanding recent state actions to protect LGBTQ youth and families and New York health providers from legal persecution for receiving or providing gender-affirming and reproductive care. Protecting the privacy and security of LGBTQ people by ensuring that New Yorkers' private information regarding their sex, gender assigned at birth, or health care will not be shared with other jurisdictions. So that's good to protect people from federal action. And that's good for people who are like from out of state where it's illegal to do it, to get their care there. Create the New York City Office of LGBTQ Affairs. They represent 15% of the population. Oversee LGBTQ initiatives. Expand liaisons to relevant agencies. Ensure nonprofits receive timely dispersal of funds for city contracts. House legal resources that ensure New York City's LGBTQ sanctuary status is upheld, providing support for trans and LGBTIA+ people and their families escaping anti-trans oppression. $30 million for housing, $20 million for mental health 10 for organizations serving transgender New Yorkers, 10 million for administration, 5 million for workforce investments, 5 million for new healthcare, 5 million for new education, 2 million for public defense. So housing, 15 million in funding for LGBTQ youth and adult housing programs. Workforce development, so create 3 million in funding and a $2 million C-Uni. I need to figure out how people say this.
CUNY.
CUNY. $2 million for CUNY initiative to provide scholarships and support the increase of trans New Yorkers working in education, social work, and healthcare. Education, $10 million to incorporate more Black and Brown-led organizations, will improve data collection strategies for PrEP and PEP usage that track its usage across diverse demographics, expand the availability of Aptitude, increase the increase includes $2 million in funding for DOH-MH 24/7 PEP hotline so individuals can always reach a person, as well as expanded hours at the New York City health centers and training emergency rooms to better serve LGBTQ patients with HIV-related mental health. $20 million for mental health providers to ensure they are adequately staffed to reduce waitlists, and would centralize all affirming mental health providers in New York City on an accessible virtual platform. Expand the Be Heard program to be citywide. Criminal legal system, $10 million prioritizing trans-led organizations, but acknowledge the barrier many small trans-led organizations have with waiting for reimbursement from the city. The office will create a $10 million fund that would provide funds up front. The office would prioritize trans-led, especially BIPOC, that's not a term that I'm familiar with. Black, Indigenous, people of color, okay. POC, trans-led organizations, they have historically been blocked from similar funding in the past, as well as provide free technical assistance to support organizations with the application and reporting requirements. Alright, that's the LGBTQ section. Healthcare, this one's shorter. My head is definitely going to be in the way. 12% of New York City residents are uninsured. To expand access to healthcare, Zohran will create a new corps of outreach workers to support New Yorkers navigating the healthcare system. These workers will support patients in understanding the public resources available to them, how to find insurance, apply to programs, access financial assistance, and claim their health benefits. As Trump attacks public health, particularly reproductive health care, Zohran will also guarantee that these outreach workers connect every New Yorker in need of reproductive care to affordable, quality support. Moreover, New York's public hospital system serves over 1 million unique patients a year and is the crown jewel of our public health infrastructure. But it faces significant funding gaps, leading to underinvestment, understaffing, and overburdened caregivers. Meanwhile, we keep closing our critical community hospitals. Zohran will work with our healthcare unions and city and state partners to increase funding for H&H and end hospital closures. He'll also protect New York City for future public health emergencies, including guarding against shortages of PPE, ensuring adequate surge capacity and healthcare worker safety, maintaining programs like Test and Trace to stay on top of trends, and more. As mayor, Zohran will reject Medicare Advantage and reject higher copays for in-service workers. Instead, he'll partner with retirees, workers, and their unions to take on the fragmented, for-profit healthcare system at lower costs for everyone. A type of Medicare-approved health plan from a private company that you can choose to cover most of your benefit. Healthcare, kind of a smaller section than I would have liked, but you know, we got a lot out of this website. As mayor, Zohran will work closely with our city's powerful labor movement to ensure that union and non-union workers alike know and can enforce their rights at work, included by fully staffing and expanding the role of the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. He will continue fighting for the Secure Jobs Act, which will make it easier for workers to organize without fear or unfair retaliatory firings. Through requiring high road labor standards for all city contractors, city-financed development projects, and city-funded organizations, and their contractors, in expanding labor peace agreement requirements. He'll ensure that all workers, including public sector workers, have the right to collective bargaining and to fight for strong contracts. Finally, Zohran will work closely with the unions to pass additional sectoral extender laws that provide better wages and working conditions across entire industries, similar to New York's fast food minimum wage law. I'm curious what that is. How much $16 per hour. $16.50. So raising the minimum wage to $30 by 2030. In the world's richest city, making the minimum wage shouldn't mean living in poverty. But that's exactly what it means for working people today, even with the hard-won increase in the state minimum wage. When incomes don't match the true cost of living, government services have to make up the difference, effectively subsidizing low-wage employers. As mayor, Zohran will champion a new local law bringing the New York City wage floor up to $30 an hour by 2030. After that, the minimum wage will automatically increase based on the cost of living and productivity increases. When working people have more money in their pocket, the whole economy thrives. Let's check out these images. Living wage calculator. A single adult with no children needs to earn $28 an hour to get by in the New York City metro area. And it's even higher for families. If the minimum wage matched increases in worker productivity over the past decades, it would hit $28 an hour next year. But when wages don't keep up, that surplus still has to go somewhere, and it goes to profits for the wealthiest corporations. A minimum wage that's below the true cost of living means government services have to make up the difference. Our public tax dollars subsidize low-wage employers. As mayor, Zohran will work with the city council to pass a new minimum wage that will reach $30 by 2030. And he wants to tie it to inflation and the cost of living. Regulating delivery apps and protecting delivery workers. This is actually something I do for work, so I'm interested in this. The delivery app industry has transformed New York City. Delivery workers are fundamental to keep the city running. Groceries, meals, and medications 24/7. Traveling around the city at breakneck speeds, app-based delivery workers now hold the most dangerous job in New York City. Despite the immense risks these workers face every day, deliveristas, 80,000 black, brown, and immigrant workers are exploited by the app companies who demand they complete deliveries at a dangerous pace. Moreover, app companies have misclassified delivery workers as independent contractors instead of employees, so that they can avoid providing them with the rights and benefits all workers deserve. New York City app consumers, restaurant owners, and small businesses, cyclists, pedestrians all suffer due to the apps companies' predatory policies. The ever-increasing demands from the app companies make our streets less safe and deliveristas more vulnerable. To address these issues, the Mamdani administration will strengthen licensure requirements for delivery apps, expand capacity and resources to support deliveristas, and improve street infrastructure, including expanding e-bike programs and investing in deliverista hubs. Let's check out the delivery memo. We're gonna breeze through this one. I don't think we need to read all 5 pages of the delivering memo. Strengthen license requirements for delivery apps. Expand capacity and resources to support deliveristas. Improve street infrastructure. What does it mean by a deliverista hub? I'm sure we'll find that out, but ensure requirements for delivery apps, ensure fair payment for workers, protect against unfair deactivations, establish transparent procedures and compensation for injuries and death, provide or service all essential tools and protective equipment, create transparent fee payment disclosure, create data policies that protect workers and customers from data surveillance, establish a delivery advocacy board, invest in enforcement mechanisms, fund deliverista organizing and skills training, provide legal support to deliveristas, require paid sick leave. That's going to be a tough one to get from the app companies. So how are they going to improve the street infrastructure? They're going to invest in and expand the e-bike programs, invest in and expand the Department of Transportation's innovative street designs to improve safety, such as wider bike lanes, passing zones, bike parking. So a deliverista hub would have bathroom access, charging stations, and shelter from severe weather, starting by converting existing facilities. Okay. That is the labor section. Small businesses. New York City is the greatest city in the world, but the people who make it so are being priced out. That includes small business owners, who account for over 90% of firms in the city, who employ nearly half of all New Yorkers within the private sector. But too many mom and pops are forced to close because keeping a business open costs too much and navigating our bureaucracy is too difficult. That costs New Yorkers their jobs, small business owners their dreams, and our city the places that give it character. Zohran will make it faster, easier, and cheaper to start and run a business in New York City, so that bodegas and corner stores stay open and dollar slices come back. It will cut small business fines in half, speed up permitting, and make online applications easier, and increase funding for one-to-one small business support by 500%, and he'll appoint a mom-and-pop czar to make sure it happens. Alright, let's see what the ideas are if there's a little more detail in here. Complex web of over 6,000 regulations and rules on small businesses. For example, it costs $105 in annual permit fees to have an industrial refrigerator, a basic staple for many restaurants. To serve a frozen dessert, a restaurant has to pay a permit of $25 per year. While one of these fines individually may not stop business, it can cause unnecessary strain for hardworking small businesses. He wants to create a mom-and-pop czar. Will ensure the city reduces small business fines and fees by 50%. That work will be focused especially on initial operating cost. A $1,000 registration fee is almost nothing to the city, but can be a significant barrier to a business opening, which means more time before staff get paid, before neighbors have another local shop, and before the city collects taxes. Speed up permitting. To open a barbershop in New York City, it's estimated that you have to fill out 24 forms, go through 7 agencies, and attend 12 activities. But this isn't unique to barbershops. Depending on the type of business, it takes between 4 and 11 agencies to start a new business. The czar will work with the government to make it easier for agencies to collaborate, making sure permits don't get stuck in interagency bureaucracy. Similar programs like the Office of Nightlife have shown that when agency heads regularly meet, times can decrease. The czar will complement the good work already being done. As easy to apply for a business as it is to order takeout. So they want to increase small business support by 500%. New York City Business Express service teams offer small businesses a direct city worker to help them apply for permits, comply with regulations, and access city and nonprofit services. So that's a good thing. I'm glad that's there. The Mamdani administration will change that by investing an additional $20 million in BEST, increasing funding for the program by 500% to ensure that business owners have a single case manager when they need support. That case manager will collect all necessary information, navigate agencies, and eliminate the redundancies in bureaucracy that can make the process take anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 months for just one permit. Cool. That's the small businesses category. Now we're going to talk about libraries. Libraries are critical to our city's success. They enable access to the internet, provide cool from the summer heat, serve as a vital community hub, and help New Yorkers seek career advancement and education. Yet Eric Adams' library closures have been devastating. As a state legislator, I supported neighborhood organizing to restore funding to Astoria's Broadway Library, and have been used assembly discretionary money to fund programming at the Queens Public Library. As mayor, I will end the practice of using library funding as a bargaining chip in budget negotiations and commit 0.5% of New York's budget to libraries, ensuring we have enough revenue for robust services and well-staffed facilities. So not too much on the libraries, but just increasing funding. Trump poofing. All right, the final section. We're in the home stretch now. Trump-proofing New York City. Donald Trump is tearing at the fabric of New York City in his second term. He has deployed ICE agents to pluck New Yorkers from their families and has already had high prices with the tariffs. And he has threatened vital social services that working New Yorkers rely on every day. We need a mayor who will stand up to him. Zohran Mamdani will fight Trump's attempts to gouge the working class and deliver a city where everyone can afford to live a dignified life. Make New York City the strongest sanctuary city in the country. So the current mayor, Eric Adams, is openly working with ICE and Trump because Eric Adams had a huge legal trouble and was going to be arrested for his briberies that he accepted from the Turkish government, but Trump put a stop to that in order to get him to do what he wanted, and that involved working with ICE And the city's private hospitals are folding to Trump's anti-trans edicts. So get ICE out of all city facilities and end any cooperation. Stationing ICE agents on Rikers Island is not about making New York safer, but about tearing families apart and throwing our communities into disarray. Rikers Island is a public land, and since it's a city property, he could prevent ICE from using it. The Mamdani administration will end this collaboration immediately and ensure all city-owned or city-leased facilities remain protected from Trump's deportation. Bolster legal support. The administration will increase funding for immigration legal services to provide representation for people and communities targeted by mass deportation. Council makes a significant difference. 74% of non-detained immigrants with lawyers win their cases, versus 13% who don't have legal help. And 88% of those detained with removal orders will receive counsel through the RRLC, and it's successful. But despite the fact that an estimated 400,000 New Yorkers are at urgent risk of deportation, the underfunding of the RRLC, only 178 people could be served last year. So what are they going to do? They're going to invest $165 million in funding for their defense, legal defense, and let's see, protect all personal data from other jurisdictions, so don't share. Make New York City an LGBTQ sanctuary city, which we already spoke about. I don't think there's going to be additional information here, so if you're interested in that, go back to the LGBT section. Legal defense, some of the nation's strongest human rights, consumer protection, and public health laws, but we do not have a law department equipped to enforce them. The Mamdani administration will muscle up the New York City Law Department, starting with 200 attorneys, to restore pre-pandemic levels, and achieving pay parity with attorney across other city agencies at an estimated cost of $51 million. Our law department has a storied history of standing up to presidential execs and policy abuses, participating in every major rights-based case to reach the Supreme Court, from Oberfeld to Janus and Dobbs and Bostock. Now with our very republic at risk, it must be a critical bulwark against defunding our communities, polluting our air, and demolishing our reproductive rights. I didn't know that the law department in New York City had such a storied history. Like, I've heard of these cases because I'm political science. I have a degree in political science, so I'm aware of these cases, but I didn't realize where they originated from. That's interesting. Protecting against Trump's critical cuts to vital services. 7% of New York City's budget comes from federal grants. It's up to the city to make sure that they can overcome that. So we've already talked about the taxes. This just goes over that again. You can check out the section for taxes if you're interested in that. And protecting against Trump coming from Medicaid and our public hospitals. Now the Republican budget bill threatens to cut $13.5 billion a year from New York's public health insurance programs, leaving over 1 million New Yorkers uninsured. Facilitating public health bonds, requiring healthcare organizations to invest in the communities in which they operate. Ensure hospitals pay their fair share, and advocate for states to target care pool funding and other safety net hospital funds to hospitals that need it the most. Defending reproductive rights. Strengthen New York City's abortion access hub by doubling funding to $2 million, which confidentially helps New Yorkers find abortion providers and support people living outside of New York through the process of scheduling appointments and finding financial assistance. It will also double the funding to the New York Abortion Access Fund, which provide essential funding to ensure New Yorkers get the medical care they need as New Yorkers face cuts to Medicaid. Protect workers from Trump's attacks. Expand the city's worker protection law to empower DCWP to better protect workers. Workers should be protected from employers misclassifying them as independent contractors, which means they may not receive minimum wage, overtime pay, or benefits to which they are entitled. No firm doing business in New York City should be allowed to steal from workers' paychecks and union bust through their suppliers and contractors, all while denying responsibility for such abuse. Allow the DCWP to take on these essential fights. They're going to double the DCWP budget to $135 million to enforce and fight wage theft, prevention, and enforce employee misclassification. Ban non-compete agreements. We already spoke about that. And we also spoke about the minimum wage to $30. So that's it. If you made it all the way this far, congratulations for making it this far. This will definitely be the longest video I've ever done. If you liked listening to me yap for that long, You should check out my other videos. You should subscribe, more importantly. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So that's Zohran's, Zohran. That's his policy for his New York City mayoral campaign. If you're going to vote for him, there's early voting right now, and then obviously election day on November 4th. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Zohran's policies. I am very appreciative of them. I love having this much information to go through, and I'm not a New York City resident, so I'm not a voter, but I think it's really important to have an educated background on who you're going to vote for. So if you are voting in this election, I appreciate you watching and checking it out. I feel like a lot of campaigns don't have this much information, but I guess the New York City mayor election is a different breed. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope to see you here again soon. See ya.